Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Be Bold. And today's episode is called We All Have a Palpatine. Now, I have been watching through the Star Wars series recently. I love Star Wars. And in episode 1 through 3, especially in episode 2 and 3, there's the transition that Anakin is making from Anakin to Darth Vader. And in watching episode 3, there were so many ways that I identified of the manipulation that Palpatine uses to influence Anakin and shift him towards the dark side. And as I'm watching this with my therapist brain, I'm like, oh my gosh, we all deal with this. I was like, depression does this, anxiety. If you are a person of faith and you believe in spiritual warfare, the enemy does this. And I wanted to talk about the signs of what a Palpatine looks like. So there's some red flags. One of the ways that Palpatine gets Anakin's attention and makes him feel safe with him is he encourages and he praises his progress. So in episode 1, at the very end, right, Anakin becomes Obi-Wan's Padawan, and Palpatine, as he's elected to Supreme Chancellor, says, we're going to be watching your career really closely to Anakin before he walks off. It was a super brief moment, as probably one of the first interactions between Palpatine and Anakin, and at this point, Anakin's a young kid, he's very impressionable, and that starts their relationship. And as we continue into episode 2, episode 3, we see Palpatine saying things like, Anakin, you're the strongest and most powerful Jedi that I've seen. And this is something that Palpatine also used with Count Dooku, who was in episode 2, getting Dooku's attention, saying he was the strongest and most powerful Jedi. And so he uses this positive reinforcement to help Annie feel safe and gain his trust. He also uses it to reinforce negative behavior, and so that also sounds like praise. So, for example, at the beginning of episode 3, Anakin gets Count Dooku cornered, and Palpatine's like, hey, you should finish him off. And Anakin knows the Jedi way, and he says, Dooku is unarmed, like this is not what we do in this situation, like we don't kill unarmed people. And so Anakin gives in, goes ahead and kills Dooku, feels really guilty about it, and Palpatine's like, hey, you did a good job, you're a really powerful Jedi, let's keep going. So the second thing that I noticed that Palpatine does is he speaks really close to the truth, but it's not quite the truth. And for Annie, it sounds similar enough that he believes this, right? So for example, Palpatine will tell Anakin things such as trust your feelings, right? And this is really similar to what the Jedi say, which is like be mindful of your feelings. They could start clouding your judgment. And so Palpatine knows this about the Jedi Order, so he uses this little like, okay, trust your feelings, so that it looks like Palpatine is aligned with the teachings that Annie is immersed in. So he knows Jedi's teachings, and there's a scene where it's just Palpatine and Anakin talking. I think they're in the facility where they're listening to debate from the other senators, and Palpatine uses this opportunity to start talking about the Sith, and then he was like, oh, this is things that the Jedi won't teach you, or the Jedi is leaving things out about like the history of what it means to engage with Jedi gifts and powers. And so he starts using that to create distrust in Anakin. And so again, this force shifting perspective, really close to the truth, but not quite the truth enough to, again, further the trust that Annie has in Palpatine, and also causes him to distrust the community that loves and cares for him. Number 3, the third red flag that a Palpatine does is he plays on your fears. So Palpatine knows that Anakin has experienced this sense of abandonment. So Annie has this fear of abandonment, right? He talks about how Obi-Wan is like a father to him, and he looks up to Palpatine in a similar way because he didn't have a father in his life. And when he goes to become a Padawan and he doesn't see his mom for like a decade, and he comes back, his mom dies. And so it's this sense of abandonment again, of his mom has left him and he couldn't do anything to save her. And so Palpatine, recognizing this insecurity that Anakin has and this core wound that Anakin has, he is playing on that to gain his trust. He starts saying things like, hey, let me tell you about this Sith Lord who was able to save someone from dying. And Anakin's like, okay, I need to learn this power because I cannot stand the thought of losing another person, which in his dreams, it's Padme, right? So fourth red flag, lies. Palpatine is such a great liar. You know, if you know anything about Star Wars and you've watched closely, you know that he keeps this war going so that he can stay in power. So anyway, going back to the encourages, praises, and progress, Palpatine praises Anakin, and then he'll say things like, the Jedi doesn't want you to succeed because of your power. The Jedi is afraid of you. They don't want you to become who you could be, and that's why they won't let you on the Jedi Council, which is totally wrong. You know, Obi-Wan says like, hey, yes, you're on the Jedi Council. No, you're not a master, but you're also the youngest person ever to be on the Jedi Council. This hasn't happened before. So the Jedi just has a particular way. They believe in patience and growth and experience, and Palpatine just completely uses this against them. He also says, hey, if you join me, like you and I, we can save Padme together, right? And the frustrating thing about this is like, Padme still dies, and Anakin is still stays aligned with Palpatine, even though like that was such an obvious lie, right? But at that point, Anakin is so far gone, and his perception is so shifted and influenced by the dark side that he can't escape what he has, like the beliefs that he has to take on. And then finally, the fifth red flag, which I'm sure that there are more moments in the series where it's like in techniques that Palpatine uses to get Anakin. He says he keeps him in isolation. So what I mean by that is Palpatine has gained his trust so much, has gained Anakin's trust so much. Palpatine knows about Padme, right? And the Jedi Order doesn't know about Padme because Anakin is afraid that he's going to get kicked out of the Jedi Order. He's like, this is exactly what's going to happen. And so he uses that secret between them to instill further distrust of Anakin's community and quote unquote family system, right? He gives him an invitation to be his representative on the Jedi Council, and once again, that's a strategy where he shifts alignment away from his role, like Anakin's role as a Padawan, to one where he has like the in with the Jedi, and then the Jedi are like, oh, you have an in with Palpatine, so we're going to take advantage of this, and we want you to spy on Palpatine, which 100% Palpatine knew what happened, which is why in that conversation earlier, he's like, oh, the Jedi asked you to spy on me, didn't they? And so again, sowing the seeds of distrust into this community that wants to like foster him and help him grow into the best that he can be, for the good of the world and the light side of the Force. And Palpatine just sees this raw power, right? Okay, so Demonica, where are you going with this? I like to use movies a lot in therapy, in my therapy sessions, to help paint pictures for people that connect with them. I particularly use Disney movies a lot. Star Wars, I know, not original Disney movie. It's now owned by Disney. That's irrelevant here. But as I was looking at all of the ways that Palpatine was gaining control and influence over Anakin and his actions and his behavior, I realized, like, oh, this looks like depression, right? Like, depression will tell us things close to the truth, either based off of past experiences, or it sounds enough like the truth that we believe it. And depression will do things like keep us in isolation of, like, oh, like, no one appreciates you, or like no one cares about your emotional state, like you should just stay here and not tell anyone that you're in this really hard way. Anxiety does the same thing, right? Anxiety sometimes looks like catastrophizing, dwelling in the worst case scenario, which Anakin does. He spends a lot of time catastrophizing about Padme dying during childbirth, which ultimately happens because of Anakin's actions. That's a different story. So we have these intrusive thoughts, is what we call them, that come in and lie to us, or they reinforce negative behavior by saying see, you entered this space and no one even asked how you were, so you have to keep your anxiety or depression or whatever it is in secret. So then that gets reinforced, and then we continue to stay in isolation, and we step out of alignment with the sense of safety in a community that has showed us, like, hey, like, we are here for you, we love you, we celebrate your birthdays, we mourn your fault, like we mourn your losses. And those intrusive thoughts really can get a hold of us and keep us from being the best that we can be, right? Keeps us from growing into the potential of who we could be, and then really distorts and the way that we engage in the world. Anakin definitely in an extreme place of shifting entirely the Jedi way of caring for the wellness in the world, and instead kills a bunch of people, participates in the killing of children because he sees them all as a threat to the Republic and democracy. I don't imagine that this is the case for most people who get pulled into the lies of the intrusive thoughts, but it could come out as far as like highly impulsive behaviors of, okay, we have a fear of attachment. People aren't going to stay around, and so we have to give them what they want. For example, it might be engaging in a frequency of sexual activity because that's how we feel a sense of like desire and attachment, even though those connections might not last really long. So we could engage in behavior such as like cutting off positive friends or trying to numb out feelings. So then we increase our substance use, whether that's alcohol or drugs. So I just wanted to share that with you guys as I'm going through the Star Wars series again. And so my challenge for you is to, if you are in those spaces where you're maybe not sure what red flags are, and you start experiencing thoughts that doesn't quite sound like you, or doesn't quite sound like of something a friend would tell you, that could be an intrusive thought. So spend some time, like if you just trying to name what the intrusive thought is that you are in the process of experiencing or experiencing in the past. And I will do another episode later looking at green flags and things that the Jedi Order does to like keep Anakin stable in his belief and stay on the good side, which if you've seen, we know how this ends, but still looking at green flags as represented by the Jedi Order for Star Wars. So until next time, have a good week.